materialism, but we're going to look at it from a completely different angle today. We're not just talking about wanting nice stuff. We're going to dig into how it can act as a value system that honestly can mess with our entire sense of purpose. So let's jump right in. So when I say the word materialism, what's the first thing that pops in your head? For most of us, right? It's probably a fancy car, maybe the newest phone, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's part of it. But what if that's just the tip of the iceberg? What if the real story goes way, way deeper? See, from a psychological standpoint, materialism isn't really about doing something. It's a whole value system. It's a way of seeing the world. Think of it like this. It's a belief that your identity, who you are, is tied to your possessions. It's the idea that success is only about what you can show for it on the outside, and that happiness, well, that's just another thing you can acquire. And that little shift in thinking, that's the point where everything changes.
Okay, so to really get how this whole distortion happens, we've got to go back. I mean, way back. All the way back to the beginning. Let's take a look at what our natural starting point is as human beings. And here's the absolute core idea we're working with. We are not born materialistic. It's just not our default setting. You know, no baby comes into the world with a price tag attached to their sense of self. So that begs the question, right? If we don't start out that way, what do we look like at the beginning?
Well, a child's experience of the world is whole. It's unified. They don't have separate mental file folders for spiritual stuff and material stuff. It's all just one big, amazing experience. You know, that sense of wonder, of connection, of pure curiosity, it's all blended together. That's the foundation for everything, for building an inner life and for dealing with the outside world. There's no separation. It's all one. And this is so important to grasp. Balance is our starting point. It's natural. But the extremes, you know, the hardcore materialism on one side, or even a total rejection of anything material on the other, those are learned behaviors. They get added on later. We pick them up over time. So, if we all start out in this state of balance, what happens? What comes along and knocks us off kilter? Well, this is where education comes in. And I don't just mean school. I'm talking about the whole shebang. What we learn at home, in our communities, from our culture, it plays a huge role. Now, a really healthy education, a balanced one, its job is to protect that natural state. It fosters things like curiosity, empathy, cooperation. It helps a child build up their inner world and their ability to navigate the outer world. And here's the key. It shows them how those two things are totally connected. But what happens when the focus shifts? When the system puts way too much emphasis on external stuff, on nonstop competition, on needing approval from others, on achievement above everything else, well, that natural balance starts to crack, and the child begins to learn a really dangerous lesson, that their worth isn't inside them. It's something they have to get from the outside. And that's the path that leads straight to those extremes we were just talking about. Okay, let's talk about the consequences. What does it actually feel like inside a person when that balance is gone? What's the real inner cost, psychologically and spiritually, of hooking your entire identity onto things outside of yourself?
Well, the price is steep. It's incredibly high. I mean, think about it. If your sense of who you are is tied to things you can gain or lose in a heartbeat, your self-worth becomes really, really fragile. And that opens the door to a whole flood of problems, things like chronic anxiety, constantly comparing yourself to others, perfectionism, and just this nagging feeling that something is missing, a loss of meaning.
And it's fascinating to see how this internal state is described in spiritual teachings. This one quote, for example, it doesn't just call it stress or unhappiness. It uses this powerful metaphor of a dark, impenetrable night. It's like a kind of spiritual blindness where you're lost and you just can't see the path to purpose anymore. And look, this isn't just an individual thing. We're all swimming in a culture that pushes these values on us, right? It rewards competition, it glorifies consumption, and this creates a whole other layer of anxiety. It's not just the fear of losing what you have. It's this constant crushing pressure to perform, to produce, to succeed, in a game where your value is basically your bank account. Wow. Okay, so when you're facing all that pressure, it can feel pretty hopeless, like you're trapped. So, is there a way out? How do we get back to that original state of balance? How do we find a purpose that feels whole again? Well, the answer is actually, surprisingly, quite simple, but it's also incredibly profound. This quote here holds a really powerful key. Notice there are two parts to it. It says, wealth is praiseworthy if it's acquired through one's own efforts and through the grace of God.
That relationship right there between those two things, that is the secret to getting rid of the anxiety that materialism creates. So let's really break that down. The anxious mindset, the materialistic one, comes from this illusion that we are in total control. It's the voice that says, I built this, I did it all myself, and now I alone have to protect it. And man, is that a heavy burden to carry. But the other mindset, the one that recognizes grace, or you could say recognizes interdependence, recognizes that there are things beyond our personal control, that allows for humility, it allows for trust, and it's that humility that just dissolves the anxiety. So when you boil it all down, materialism creates three big distortions in our lives. Number one, it replaces a solid sense of identity with fragile possessions. Number two, it shrinks our search for meaning down to just a list of achievements. And number three, it takes the human need for service and twists it into a need for competition. And this next point is absolutely crucial. The antidote here is not to become poor or to reject the world. That's not it at all. You can be incredibly wealthy and also deeply spiritual. And you can be poor and still be completely materialistic. The solution isn't on the outside, it's on the inside. It's about detachment, which is just the freedom of not letting your stuff define who you are. When it all comes down to it, it's really this simple. Materialism shrinks the human being. It doesn't just distract us, it actively redefines our purpose into something much, much smaller than what we're actually capable of. It shrinks our world, it shrinks our identity, and it shrinks our ability to connect with each other. And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question to think about. At the end of the day, as we're all trying to build a good life, maybe the most important question isn't what do we possess? Maybe the real question is, what possesses us?